The panel industry in China has officially entered a phase of extreme internal competition. One business owner explained the situation. The US raised tariffs on Chinese exports, and that has made things even harder for factories that already struggled to survive. Once they couldn't sell overseas, they had no choice but to sell domestically. But the domestic market has its own problems. No demand, no sales teams, and no advantage. Price cutting becomes the only option. Eventually, business owners end up shouldering the losses. Factories are forced to sell at a loss just to survive. As a result, multi-layer panels are no longer real multi-layer panels. Eco panels are no longer eco-friendly, and many products no longer meet environmental standards. A TikTok user criticized the popular idea of, quote, switching to domestic sales when exports fail. He pointed out that China's domestic market is already saturated with intense competition. He asked how any company can compete with platforms like Pinduoduo, which focus on rock-bottom prices. Domestic-focused companies have been in a price war for years. So when a high-cost export factory suddenly tries to enter the domestic market, it can't keep up. It's bound to lose money and struggle to survive. Another TikTok user echoed that criticism. Who came up with the idea that if exports don't work, just switch to domestic sales? That logic is flawed. Domestic demand doesn't magically increase. The population hasn't changed, income hasn't grown, and consumer confidence keeps falling. If the market used to support only 1 billion yuan worth of goods, how could it suddenly absorb another 1 billion just because exports stopped? Many export products simply don't fit domestic needs. Things like surfboards, lawnmowers, or 100-euro cups might sell abroad, but no one in China wants them. And even if someone does, they're not going to pay a high price for them. The deeper issue, he said, is overcapacity. Too many products, not enough buyers. The problem isn't that a few export orders disappeared, it's that no one can sell anything. So switching to domestic sales isn't a real solution. It's just a false hope in a worsening situation. The real problem isn't whether switching is possible. It's that income, confidence, and structure across the entire domestic economy are broken. Without real purchasing power, any shift is doomed. If businesses want to survive, they need to move up the value chain or keep looking for overseas markets. There's no other way. On April 30th, a woman who used to focus on exports said she's now doing both domestic and international sales because the situation is too unstable. One tariff or one policy could destroy everything.
It's impossible to keep prices stable in this environment. Both domestic and export markets are in fierce price wars. Plus, foreign buyers now have other countries to choose from, not just China. People used to think export business meant easy money, but that time is long gone.
She also said that in today's China, people are undercutting each other. Chinese manufacturing is too massive and powerful. The advantage is having control over production. But at the same time, this marks the beginning of endless internal competition. Since early April, as the CCP tries to counter US tariff hikes, export industries along China's coast have been struggling. This only made the internal competition worse. Now the Chinese government is urging export businesses to enter the domestic market, adding even more pressure to an already saturated space. In fact, since 2020, the word involution, meaning pointless excessive competition, has become widely used in China. Now, in the 5th year of this trend, and with the US-China trade war dragging the economy down even further, China has entered a deep involution era. As one person online put it, everyone's fighting and exhausting themselves. No matter how hard you work or how much you give, the total benefit never grows. It's always just that little bit. Since 2020, intense internal competition has taken over many industries in China, and it's closely tied to the Chinese Communist Party tightening its grip on the economy. During the 3 years of the pandemic, the CCP's approach of prioritizing politics over economic growth led to crackdowns on private businesses and foreign investment in the name of security. As a result, people's economic opportunities have shrunk. Traditional white-collar jobs in real estate, private tutoring, and tech have all been disappearing. More and more people, especially struggling middle-class workers and unemployed college graduates, have started taking jobs in blue-collar sectors that were once seen as a fallback, like ride-hailing, food delivery, and restaurant work. By 2023, many local governments said the ride-hailing market was becoming saturated. Drivers noticed this too. saying it felt like too many monks, not enough porridge. By 2024, competition in the ride-hailing industry got even worse. According to chief economist Fu Peng at Northeast Securities, around 20 million new ride-hailing drivers suddenly joined the market that year, many of whom used to be part of the middle class. On April 30th, 2025, a female TikTok user explained why it's so hard to make money as a ride-hailing driver. She said that at first it was tiring, but still possible to earn something. The platform would often assign her low-quality orders, like picking up someone for a 2.8-kilometer ride and dropping them off after just 3 kilometers. That would pay her about 6 or 7 yuan. While platforms are supposed to give better orders to experienced drivers, that's not what happens. Because of the algorithm, if the system sees that you rely on driving to survive, it keeps your income low but stable. So the platform ends up acting like a mobile sweatshop, and the algorithm treats drivers more like machines than people. Another driver in Beijing said the situation is already beyond extreme.
Let me show you guys. This is supposedly a busy downtown area at midnight, where the streets are filled with idle ride-hailing cars waiting for orders that never came. Everyone wants to go home early, have a hot meal, and get some rest, but the pressure of life keeps them out here. We checked our team's numbers. People stay online for 14 to 18 hours a day and only make 700 or 800 yuan. The effort and the reward just don't match anymore.
A designated driver commented that their line of work has also turned into a dying business. Competition is fierce, and everyone is slashing prices. He called it the lowest form of competition and suggested that platforms should work together to set stable prices, especially in smaller cities. He warned that this kind of intense internal competition will leave no winners. The food delivery sector is also oversaturated. In 2023, 30% of Meituan delivery workers in Guangzhou were college graduates, making it a knowledge-intensive job. Reports from Chinese media say big internet companies have had waves of layoffs. Many workers have turned to the restaurant business as a last resort, but even restaurants have been closing in large numbers in 2023 and 2024 due to the same kind of price war. On April 28, 2025, a restaurant owner said that the market is already full. Nothing is easy anymore. Running a restaurant in 2025 is even harder than in 2024. I'm not exaggerating. Those popular places near my home that used to have long lines last year now have barely any customers. If a place has 2 or 3 tables occupied, that's already considered busy. Every industry is feeling the pressure this year, but food and barbecue businesses are now especially tough. A skewer of grilled meat used to sell for 1.51 or maybe 1.2. Now it's down to 0.81, and some places are selling it for just 0.6. I'm not even talking about the quality of the meat yet. Then you have hot pot skewers. The average price used to be around 0.391 per stick, and some were even higher. But now I'm seeing a lot of shops selling them for just 0.31. Even barbershops are caught in this price war. I used to pay 20 yuan for a haircut, but recently a new place opened next door, charging only 10. At lunchtime, I was out walking and saw so many delivery drivers just waiting outside the mall with no orders. You really have to wonder, what is happening to our society? A liquor seller added, quote, "The white liquor industry is facing intense internal competition. It feels like the whole thing is on the verge of collapsing." In the past 2 years, what has the liquor industry gone through? That's right, intense internal competition. At first, everyone thought poor sales were because their prices were too high, so they lowered the prices. If others are selling for this much, I'll go 5 yuan cheaper. Then they saw the competitors going even lower. Fine, I'll just make 5 yuan per bottle. That should work, right? But then someone else was making only 5 yuan on a whole box. So they said, I'll take a loss of 5 yuan per bottle just to attract more customers. But then they found out that people who collected used bottles would sell them for 30 yuan less. And some shady businesses were even selling bottles at a discount of 50 or 100 yuan. Only then did they realize the problem isn't the price. It's that there's no demand. People don't want cheap. They want to take advantage without any limit. Once sellers realize that even after slashing prices, they're still losing money, that's the moment the entire industry begins to collapse. A TikTok user pointed out that internal competition has become a deadlock ever since Chinese e-commerce took off. He said Chinese people have this deep belief in small profits, high sales volume. It sounds logical, But it's not. For example, in Jewish business culture, it is the opposite. They promote high profit with low volume. They see low margin businesses as a trap that will eventually choke you, because once margins shrink, quality declines.
就中国真的太卷。
Now China is just too competitive. All this competition creates no real value for society. You sell something for 10 yuan, I sell it for 8. Then someone in Hebei will go even lower and sell it for 6. He argued that relying on low prices is just an excuse for having no unique product. He believes consumer products should win through quality and customer loyalty, not price wars. The US-China tariff war has also affected the animal feed industry. On April 28, 2025, a professional in the field said the feed industry has entered its second phase, one full of crisis. We're seeing all kinds of competition. Some are slashing prices, others are cutting costs. In the short term, it works. Farmers feel like they're getting a deal and will give it a try. But in the end, those same farmers will leave. There will always come a time when you can't cut prices any further. Companies keep undercutting each other just to survive, but they don't end up with the steady sales or good profits. So this wave of price cutting is like a gust of wind. After it passes, whether it's the feed industry or the pig farming sector, they realize it hasn't added any real value. In fact, it has caused more harm than good. Only then will the industry return to rational thinking. He predicted that 30% of feed companies may go out of business this year. He said the core issue isn't tariffs. It's that these companies don't have strong products, channels, or brand messaging. They haven't figured out how to promote their products or services quickly, how to attract customers efficiently, or how to cut business costs. Instead, they just keep lowering their product formulas. That creates a vicious cycle. Shenzhen entrepreneur Wang Yingguo also talked about internal competition in the construction industry. He said that construction thrived during China's economic boom, but now the Chinese Communist Party has crushed many companies. Across the country, the real estate market collapsed overnight. A TikTok user offered 3 reasons why people feel every industry is now exhausting and fiercely competitive. First, from 2010 to 2020, real estate in China grew extremely fast. Cities were filled with new skyscrapers. He used to work on construction sites doing water and electrical systems. He saw firsthand how fast products were rushed. But within just 10 years, the industry completed what should have taken 30, 40, or even 50 years. That broke the natural cycle of the industry. And now, many construction workers are out of work. Second, parents push their kids into all kinds of tutoring and training classes. But they often forget a harsh truth. The college entrance exam ranks students by score. If everyone scores over 600, then 600 isn't even enough to get into a university. This kind of competition doesn't benefit society. It just exhausts the kids. Third, let's say one clothing factory works nonstop all year and produces as much as 3 other factories combined. That might sound like success, but in reality, it means the other 2 factories could go out of business and a lot of people might lose their jobs, because overall, market demand stays the same. This is also one reason why some people overseas don't like working with Chinese immigrants. In many Western countries, people work 5 or 6 hours a day, take weekends off, and enjoy their lives. But Chinese workers often work over 10 hours a day, even on weekends. Locals are afraid this kind of work ethic will ruin their quality of life. He said there's a lot Chinese people could learn from how foreigners protect their rights and enjoy life. Chinese people also want freedom. They want to enjoy life, not just work themselves to the bone day after day. Now China is becoming more and more trapped in internal competition. Even the authorities are starting to say they want to fix the problem. But some people online argue that the real cause is the privileged class. They keep expanding and taking over all the best resources. They control every profitable industry, so regular people have fewer good jobs to choose from. Wu Siji, a consultant from a Taiwanese think tank, wrote that the root of China's involution problem lies in the country's political system. He said the party-state structure has only accelerated the trend. In his view, Xi Jinping's leadership style has already set China on a path towards endless internal competition. Since the mid-1990s, all the most profitable industries in China, real estate, mining, finance, telecoms, transportation, energy, and any field that needs government licenses, had been controlled by powerful families tied to the Communist Party. Back in May 2020, former Premier Li Keqiang admitted that 600 million people in China earn an average of just around 1,000 yuan a month. Shenzhen entrepreneur Wang Yingguo said that Western workers have benefits and social protections. They work, married, and start families. The healthy cycle of and reward. But in China, under Xi Jinping, the system looks more like North Korea's. The government treats people like slaves. After the Communist Party monopolizes all resources, workers aren't working to live anymore. They're just trying to survive. A young content creator also weighed in, saying that young people in China today aren't naive enough to sacrifice their lives for something called national interest. All of China's economic problems could actually be solved if only the young generations, the Gen Z and millennials, were willing to sacrifice themselves. If they all took on mortgages and car loans and gave up their future, then the economy and consumer spending would improve. But the biggest issue right now is that this generation doesn't seem willing to make that sacrifice. He mentioned that a man born in the 60s told him young people today just don't work hard enough. The man also said he worked hard back in the day and now receives a monthly pension of over 20,000 yuan. He blamed young people's inability to buy a home or live comfortably on their lack of effort. A TikTok user said this kind of comment made him really uncomfortable. He responded politely, pointing out that the older generation was lucky to benefit from a different era, and the pensions they now receive are actually funded by the younger generation paying into the system. There's a saying, when you're poor, just